we get underway this evening, I would first like to acknowledge that many of us here in Seattle are gathered on the unceded traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, particularly the Duwamish, whose ancestors have resided here since time immemorial. Many Indigenous peoples thrive in this place, alive and strong, and we offer our deepest respect and gratitude to them and to our many Indigenous neighbors here in Washington and across the United States for their enduring care and protection of their shared lands and waterways. So thank you all for joining us on this evening, and thank you for your time on this beautiful sunny day. I know we're competing with the rare blue skies and sunny days, so thank you additionally for spending time with us. I'm Melissa, I'm the Executive Director of Washington Farmland Trust, and I'm here along with my colleagues, Lily Gottlieb-McHale, who is a farmer and our Farm to Farmer Coordinator here in King County, our Community Partnerships Director, Megan Jenny, and our Development and Donor Engagement Director, Judith Austin, who's our cruise ship captain for the night. Tonight, we're here to thank you. We're here to talk about the work of the Farmland Trust, and we're here to talk particularly about one of our newest programs, Farm to Farmer. At the end, we'll have time for Q&A, but at any point, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We commit to honoring all of our calendars and keeping ourselves as close as we can to an hour tonight. And just as a reminder, we will be recording this event and it will be shared broadly after the event. If you are uncomfortable being part of a video or being recorded, we just ask you to turn your video off. You can still participate in the Q&A, of course. So before we talk about the future, I'd like to take a quick step back to talk about 2020 and the several years leading up to that. And last year, as the world swirled in uncertainty, you all stood firmly with Washington Farmland Trust and in defense of your local food system. And that really matters. Thank you. And while we were fortunate to have our best, getting a little emotional, while we were fortunate to have our best fundraising year to date, and we've grown in more robust and impactful ways in nearly every metric as a result of our recently closed Our Farms, Our Future campaign. And over the past 5 years, we've been able to raise over $26 million. We've conserved 12 farms. We've protected 1,399 acres, almost 1,400. We've launched several programs, advancing farm sustainability and Farm to Farmer. We've rolled out a new name and a new brand, and we've unveiled our strategic plan. And so on behalf of our board and our staff and our local farmers, we are deeply grateful for you all today. Thank you for your generosity and for the many ways you've shown up for Washington's farmers and farmland over the years. And so with the past 20 years of successful and incremental growth under our belts, I'd love to talk to you all about what is ahead for the Trust. And we believe it's a lot more of the same good, great work. So as many of you know, we confront many problems and obstacles in our work, and that hasn't changed as we look into the future. We still face significant statewide farmland loss. We still face significant barriers to access to land. Climate change is barreling down on us, and current and historic inequities in our lands and food system are pervasive. We aim to address these by using the core strategies outlined here on this slide, and tackling these complexities requires a multi-pronged approach. Next slide, please, Judith. At the Farmland Trust, we believe partnerships are key to unlocking these large and complex challenges like climate change, like farmland loss, and like inequities in accessing land. In all of our work, we are deeply engaged in building partnerships with tribes, local government, and agricultural communities. These partnerships are critical to ensure that our permanent conservation work supports multiple needs in the face of uncertainty and change. And similarly, this partnership ethic is the lens through which we view our expanding work, our expanding footprint, and the geographies that we serve. We cannot do this work alone. Next slide, please. And additionally, as we work within a rapidly changing and dynamic ecosystem of rural and agricultural communities and economies, there are so many pressures barreling down on these communities. We've talked about climate change, skyrocketing land prices. Prices are still going up. And even in the past year alone, we've seen them go up upwards of 60% in some geographies here in Washington. And systemic racism. And all of these things prevent many producers from building the successful farm businesses that we all need to thrive. Confronting climate change in our conservation work and social inequities in everything we do is core to Washington Farmland Trust and our vision and values and our future success. We recognize the need to support farmers in their investments in soil health. And we also recognize that land access is a critical tool for confronting climate change in agriculture. Typically, farmers are reluctant to invest in climate-friendly practices when they don't have long-term access to land. Over the next few years, our team will continue to integrate climate science into our farm and stewardship planning processes. And as our portfolio grows across the state, we also plan to grow how our stewardship program can support and deliver resources to the farmers we partner with. And over the past 12 to 18 months, our organization has been aggressively pursuing what feels like and is organizational transformation to center diversity, equity, and inclusion in everything we do. We've been working with a local consultant, a wonderful guy named Sean Watts, and he's been working with our team here at the Trust to strengthen our abilities and core capacities to do things, and doing things like how to have sensitive and challenging conversations related to social inequities, how to intervene and disrupt racism when we observe it in our lives and our work, and to lean into compassion and vulnerability and curiosity and empathy and listening in order to shape the way we show up and engage and partner and engage the communities who we aim to serve. This is the critical and often really hard to describe work of organizational change and confronting systemic racism as a nonprofit organization. We understand that centering DEI in everything we do requires us to be incremental and relentless, and we're committed to doing so. And as a product of this past 12 months of deep engagement, the whole staff has come together to create a DEI action plan. And that action plan calls us to first focus internally on our hiring practices and our HR systems. We're transforming this organization from the ground up. We know it will not be quick, but we know we will be thoughtful and intentional and responsive to community needs. And as we aim to transform our organization and build climate resilience into our programs, we also know we need to expand where we do that work in order to protect the best remaining farmland. We're the only statewide farmland conservation organization, and we're committed to showing up for agricultural communities here. We've identified priorities for our expanded geographic work and our expanded service area, and we've targeted farmland conservation efforts where land is disappearing fastest. Some interpretation of the map that you see in front of you, you'll see a dark green area there in Western Washington. Those are the highest priority lands for Western Washington, and that is currently where we are actively working. Those areas like Snohomish County, the Stille Valley, you're going to start hearing a lot about here in the next few months, Pierce County, Thurston County, and Lewis County. The light green areas are high priority areas. This is where we're currently building relationships and mapping opportunities. Here we are listening and learning about what is needed and how we can help. And the yellow on the east side of the state represent long-term areas of interest. We know we need to learn a lot more about what the needs are in this geography, and we're committed to showing up in partnership with others who are already doing this work, or land trusts who are already here who want to do more farmland protection, but this is over the next 3 to 5 years. Land access and affordability are key priorities for the Trust. And my colleague, Megan Denny, who's here with us tonight, is here to share more about our innovative and growing program, Farm to Farmer. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. And thank you all for joining us tonight. So just a little bit of history. We launched Farm to Farmer in Pierce and King counties in 2018 to address two big problems that we saw facing the communities where we work. So the first is that according to the National Young Farmers Coalition, access to land is the single number one challenge, the number one, not the single challenge facing, there are many challenges facing young farmers. But land access is the one that they rank highest as the biggest challenge. And there are a number of reasons why, many of which Melissa covered earlier tonight: rising land prices, competing land uses, and that there's a generation of farmers that are being called to this profession who are not inheriting land from their families. And for Black, Indigenous, and POC and socially disadvantaged farmers, these challenges are compounded by a long history of systemic discrimination, which has resulted in land loss and inequitable access to land and resources. So that is one big systemic problem that we had in mind when we built Farm to Farmer. The second is our region is in the midst of a generation of farmland owners retiring. That's causing a monumental land tenure shift that leaves farmland fallow and vulnerable. And we know that a crucial first line of defense in protecting farmland is to ensure that there's a thriving farm business on it. So Farm to Farmer is a tool that we can use to keep land in production. So to address these issues, we built Farm to Farmer with a two-pronged approach. We have a website, farmtofarmer.org, where farmers can post profiles about their farm businesses and their land needs. And folks with land opportunities for lease or for purchase can create listings for those as well. And people can connect directly right through the messaging platform. But the cornerstone of the program's success is that we have community-based farm-to-farmer coordinators, many of whom are farmers themselves, who provide one-on-one technical assistance to every farmer and landowner who uses farmtofarmer.org. And coordinators know what it takes to search for land and run a farm business in the geography where they're supporting other farmers in that work. They know exactly who to pick up the phone to call up the county if you've got a permitting question. They know which realtors are well-versed in farmland. And you'll be hearing from Lily, our Farm to Farmer coordinator in King County tonight. She's a great example of that. And what we've found is that by going beyond having a website and really building the program on a case management approach that's rooted in strong relationships and trust building, that we're able to be flexible and meet people where they are. So whether they're a senior who is looking to transition their land but doesn't do email or the internet, or if they're a bilingual farmer who has limited English literacy, we're able to support these folks and offer services regardless of whether or not they interact with the website. Next slide, please. We offer personalized technical assistance to current and aspiring farmers, to private and public landowners, real estate agents, and organizations looking to expand their incubator programs or ag park programs. In addition to making introductions between farmers and those with land to lease or purchase, we help program participants to clarify goals, identify barriers, understand financing options, and complete due diligence on specific farm properties. And I will let Lily cover more detail on how this plays out with farmers we work with on the ground. Next slide, Judith. So Farm to Farmer currently serves Pierce, King, and Skagit counties. So those are the green and yellow counties that you see on your screen. And in 2019, we began offering Farm to Farmer in Skagit County, where we work with Viva Farms, a bilingual farmer training and business incubator, to deploy Farm to Farmer there. So in that partnership, Viva Farms hosts the local Farm to Farmer coordinator who helps design place-based strategies and provide services to participants on the ground. And then the Farmland Trust leverages farmtofarmer.org, and we provide training and support in technical assistance in the program structure to their local coordinator. In just 3 years, Farm to Farmer has already gained a great deal of traction in the communities where we work. We've provided technical assistance to 90 farmers in their land searches, and have made over 100 introductions between farmers and landowners. The blue counties that you see on your map are the places where we've heard from farmers and partners expressing an interest in expanding farm to farmer to their geography as well. And we've established a roadmap to continue expanding the program using a network model. The network will bring together organizations across the state like Viva Farms, who house a local farm to farmer coordinator and are able to provide community specific technical assistance. And recognizing the significant resources needed to bring on staff or shift around staff capacity, and realizing that partnership development moves at the speed of trust, we aim to expand our current model to 3 additional communities before the end of 2022, namely Snohomish County and 2 counties on the peninsula, Clallam and Jefferson. You'll see that there are a lot more blue counties on that map. And so given the size of the need, we are simultaneously planning to add capacity to Washington Farmland Trust team to provide a version of our technical assistance statewide. So that way we can do what we can to close the gap across the state while building those relationships and funding structures to scale our model that we know works. Next slide, thank you. And then moving on from our statewide vision to our current work in King County. Our work in King County is guided by the shared goals of the Working Farmland Partnership, a group of stakeholders aiming to ensure a farming future in King County by keeping land in production and increasing land access for farmers. By leveraging land matching programs like Farm to Farmer and farmer training organizations, and through personalized technical assistance, the work of the Working Farmland Partnership helps landowners put their farmable land into production and farmers find and activate the right properties for their businesses. Our shared goals statement as part of the Working Farmland Partnership is that by 2030, the partnership will ensure that all farmers, with a specific emphasis on Black, Indigenous, and people of color farmers, will have access to farmable land and that land is maximized to its full farming potential in King County. As you can see on your screen, the organizations that we work in partnership with in King County include Snow Valley Tilth, King County's Ag Program, Viva Farms, American Farmland Trust, International Rescue Committee's New Roots Program, and King Conservation District. I also need to add that King Conservation District funds this collaborative. And then I'm going to hand it over to Lily to talk a little bit more about how we support people through the Working Farmland Partnership.
Cool. Thanks, Megan. Can you guys hear me okay? Is that all right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I coordinate the Farm to Farmer program in King County and then also coordinate the Working Farmland Partnership. So I'll talk a little bit more about that first. So like Megan said, we're working in this partnership model to basically be putting more farmland into production in King County. The collaboration is really important, taking that approach, and all of us kind of pulling in the same direction to activate more farmland here in King County. So some of the partners that you see up there are doing the kind of on the ground matching work like what we do, while other organizations are more resource organizations like KCD or King County, for instance. So working together is really important. So if I'm working with a farmer and a landowner, I can, like Megan said, pick up the phone and contact someone at King County and get that resource help that we need. So one way that we work together as a partnership, all these organizations, is we kind of gather around in a wraparound service around a particular farmer or particular farmer group or a landowner that needs extra help. We call these project teams. And then we bring in service providers from outside of the partnership if we need them, and really kind of surround the farmer or the group to be able to sort of more extensively than we can in any other way. And some of the things we help with are, you know, getting a property ready for leasing or selling, infrastructure development, really understanding permit and regulation issues, land use questions, things like that. So, you know, what we also can do is we kind of track all the parts of these projects and really help move them forward. The other great thing that the partnership is working on is these more kind of systemic, larger scale land access barriers, these sort of bigger issues that farmers in King County are facing, things like water rights issues, farm worker housing, federal loan program issues. As a partnership, we can sort of start to chip away at these bigger issues. Yeah, so I think we can go on to the next slide. Oh, I think you skipped one. Thank you. So as a way to introduce myself a little bit more, aside from my work coordinating Farm to Farmer and the WFP, I'm also a farmer, like Melissa mentioned. So these are some images from my farm that I wanted to share with you. My farm is called Shared Soil, and we're down in Enumclaw. We started the farm in 2016. My partner and I grow vegetables, and we lease land out to 2 other farm families. All of us began farming on an incubator farm. Unfortunately, that incubator farm closed down. And so then when we bought our land, we kind of brought over 2 other farm businesses with us who also needed land at the time. So we currently have 3 businesses there under the umbrella of Shared Soil. It's Twinkle Toes Farm, Faith Beyond Farm, and then my farm, which is Lily's Fields. We each run our own business, but we share infrastructure like our wash station, our cooler, our greenhouse, and our tractor. Yeah, we found that finding leasable land that's set up for vegetable production is a huge need in King County. So we're really excited to kind of be able to share this shared land model with other people. We kind of established the farm with that in mind to create land access for beginner, immigrant, and socially disadvantaged farmers. So through my farm, I've kind of been on all sides of the land access issue as a farmer, as a land seeker myself before I bought my farm, as a landowner now that's leasing to other farmers, and then helping other folks navigate how to buy land. And then some people have come out and been really interested in setting up a shared farm as well. So helping other folks do that. So all this has really informed what I do now with Farm to Farmer and the Working Farmland Partnership. So now I'm going to talk a bit about some of the farmers we're working with through Farm to Farmer and through the WFP. So this is a farmer named Moses. He is originally from Kenya and has farming experience from back home. And we started working with him through Farm to Farmer. He ultimately wants to buy land, but he signed up to find land either to buy or to lease, which is something you can do on Farm to Farmer. You can say either, whichever comes first, kind of, or whatever they're able to find. So his farm vision is to raise pasture, raise goats, sheep, and chickens, and to sell meat to his community. He lives in South King County. And Moses faces a lot of sort of the typical barriers we're seeing in land access, especially in King County. You know, it's really hard to find land. It's really expensive. There's not a lot of land available in people's price range. I think you can stay on the Moses slide, actually. Other issues like it's difficult to navigate systems to buying land, like land use regulations, issues of systemic racism, language barriers, and breaking into new markets. So luckily we were able to match Moses with some land for lease on newly acquired land that King County owns on this farm that's in the picture here called Bonamy Farm, that's just south of Issaquah. And after the match, we saw that Moses needed additional assistance to navigate sort of the arrangement and the lease with King County, establish infrastructure on the farm, get connected to other resources, applying for funding. So we established a WFP project team, like I mentioned, as a way to be able to help Moses with all these other elements to really get started on his farm. And we're really excited that he's going to be launching his farm on this site this spring. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is Wakalima USA. It's an African farmer collective that was founded by 2 Kenyan farmers. There's about 20 farmers in the collective from different parts of Africa. And they all have farming experience from back home and are working to find land locally. And their vision is to farm together, market together, share land, grow traditional as well as staple crops. We've been working with them for a few years. They currently farm on urban ag sites, such as at Highline College, but they're looking for land for their project, and they want to kind of slowly expand over a few years. And so originally we matched them onto the same property that Moses is on that I just talked about. But they were finding that developing infrastructure there and the circumstances of that property were not working out. It was really far away. All the farmers in this collective live in South King County. So they wanted to find something closer. And luckily, there's another property that came up, also owned by the county, that's going to be a much better fit. So we're really excited to be able to continue helping them as they transition to that property, develop the infrastructure they need, and work on the arrangement with the county on that lease. So those are the types of elements we can help them with. You'll notice that I'm talking a lot about King County owned properties right now. And just want to mention that, you know, finding private land to lease is really hard in this county, especially finding a piece of land that has water or infrastructure can be really challenging. And King County just happened to make these 2 properties available this year with a focus on leasing to BIPOC farmers. So it's been a really great opportunity to help these farmers activate this farmland. And you can move on to the next one. So this is actually the property that the Wakalima Collective, as well as this partnership that I'm going to be talking about called FACT, are also going to be farming on this property. So this is the this is the FACT group is South King County Food Access and Aggregation Community Team. It's a partnership founded in 2017 made up of South King County food and agriculture organizations that you see listed there. You'll see My Farm is also part of that. And basically this partnership is working to increase land access, food access, shared infrastructure, and marketing opportunities in South King County. Several of the organizations work to support immigrant and refugee farmers, and others work on food access or shared purchasing. So basically the whole partnership is working to kind of build toward a robust food system in South King County. So FACT as a group is going to be leasing land from King County at this farm that I have up here on the picture called Horsehead Farm, which is just south of Kent. You can actually kind of see the bubble of development of Kent, and you can kind of see how it looks like a horse head. So it's just south of Kent. And FACT is going to be starting to farm as a partnership here this spring 2021. So we launched a project team as part of the Working Farmland Partnership to help FACT in really creating a lease arrangement with King County, developing shared infrastructure on the site, creating a farm plan, bringing in service providers to assist, and generally just troubleshooting all kinds of different issues that come up. Yeah, and that will be ongoing. I mean, you know, we help people kind of as they're working on creating leases and starting to farm, and then, you know, make sure to continue as much as groups need our help. So all the projects I talked about are pretty much still ongoing. So yeah, I think I'll hand it over to you, Judith.
All right, thank you, Lily. Thank you, Melissa and Megan. I'm sorry to jump around with you on the slides there. Every time I would get a question in the chat, I would mess something up. So sorry for the jumping around. We did get two great questions while we were chatting. One was from Jack. He just wanted more information about examples of technical assistance. So we'd love to just go back to that. And then also, I think Inda asked, exactly how big is shared soil? So I'll let you take either one of those first, Lily and Megan, maybe you can chime in too.
Sure. Yeah, so when we say technical assistance, it can be anything from farming questions, land use questions, like what are you allowed to farm here or there if there's a wetland or a buffer? Can you build can you build farm structures on different parts of your property? So navigating permits, regulations, any of those types of systems, I would call technical assistance. Also, resources around funding and applying the loans, things like that. Yeah, even soil, water questions. I mean, there's a lot of great groups doing work on all of those things, and we're kind of a clearinghouse for all the questions, and then we refer people out to the different service providers that could help more. So like I know a lot about water and water rights, but I also refer folks over to the real experts on water rights that can help them. Does that answer that?
One other thought, Lily, is do you want to mention property due diligence?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so big piece of something we've been doing lately is as farmers are looking at a property that they're considering to buy, they do come to us with a lot of questions around property due diligence. So, making sure they're able to farm in the way they'd like to farm on a property, understanding what's there in terms of soil, water, resources, infrastructure. So yeah, we've been helping people through kind of really getting to know property before they buy it, because realtors can only tell you so much, and there's so many more questions beyond what realtors sometimes can provide. So yeah, we've been playing that role as well. And then for the shared soil question, we are on 10 acres and we don't farm all of that currently. But yeah, we have most of it in crop production and a little bit in chickens. And then there's a homestead site. And we have open fields that we use for rotation. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Lily. So I'm happy to keep moderating chat if folks want to pop questions or thoughts in there for us to respond to, or feel free to go off mute and just go ahead and verbalize your question too. I'm happy to go either way today. What questions do you have?
I'll ask one. It'll take me a while to type it, so I'll just ask it. Maybe this is a Melissa question of like, what are the next 3 projects you're most, next 3 farms, I guess, that are coming up right now, and where are they?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, thanks for asking, Sarah. We have been working through a fairly significant pipeline of projects that have been delayed either due to COVID or funding delays through the federal government. So we're not just working through active projects, but we're working through projects that have been delayed. But we do have 3 really exciting projects coming up in the Stillaguamish Valley, where there's a really significant emphasis on agricultural conservation being a solution to climate change and protecting threatened Chinook runs in that watershed. And so we're really excited about our partnership up there with Snohomish Conservation District and the Sustainable Land Strategy and the tribes. And we'll be debuting 3 new projects, hopefully in the first half of the year. We have some funding deadlines, so we're pretty clear about when they need to be wrapped up. But those are some of the projects we've been working on that will be set to close soon. And then we have a couple of others up in Snohomish County we're hoping to close by the end of the year. So lots of activity up in Snohomish. And as I was mentioning earlier in the presentation, we're really in a relationship building mode in Southwest Washington and the South Puget Sound area. And so we have a couple of projects queued up down there. I think we're hoping to close by the end of the year. It just depends on timing with federal funding, but some exciting work down in Pierce County where we've been doing work for almost a decade now too. Lots of exciting things happening.
Thank you, Melissa, and thanks for the question, Sarah. I know some of us got to go in pre-COVID times on a tour out to the Stillaguamish River Valley a while back, and it was just a beautiful day, and we got to visit some of the sites along the Stille and can picture why that area is so important. So we will be able to do that again, hopefully in the not too distant future. I'm looking forward to walking a few more farms with folks. So do folks have other questions this evening about Farm to Farmer? It's a fairly technical program. They are a small but mighty crew who gets an incredible amount of work done. It's really pretty impressive, and happy to have them here tonight to talk a little bit more about it. It's exciting to daylight a lot of this work for the first time in this way. All right, so Megan, I'll throw one in here for you. Which of the counties are you most excited to expand to first? Like, what of your hopes and dreams for this program? What gets you up in the morning and back on Zoom for another day at the office?
Wow. First of all, I feel like I could get myself into trouble if I played favorites with various communities across the state. So I'm gonna say that there's really I'm excited to be able to communicate and externalize the partnerships that we're building in many geographies. I'm excited about all of them. I think that the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, Judith, to get to the second half of your question, I'm really excited about the ways in which we can innovate and expand how we support people through Farm to Farmer. So we launched the program to really create that connection between people who are looking for land but don't have connections in the community and folks who are ready to transition or want to lease their land. And making those introductions is one thing, but we're quickly realizing how tied that work is to really underscore the points that Lily was making. We're supporting folks in a whole host of ways outside of that, making that initial connection. And so I'm really excited about the ways in which our organization is thinking about various pathways to ownership for land for farmers, whether that's through a collective model like Lily is piloting, or the creation of an LLC, or just really looking at other sectors that are thinking about community stewardship of land and housing and how we can apply that to the farming communities where we work. So those are the things that are really exciting for me.
Nice, thank you, Megan. I have to say, as we were looking at that aerial shot of, what was it, the Horsehead Farm, I was reminded of a story that Sarah Christensen actually told me early on about remembering going down to Kent Valley and picking peas as a young person. So I think for a lot of folks who grew up in this area, there's a lot of good, positive feelings and associations with bringing that land into production, keeping it in production, what is left down there. And so I just wanted to pass that story on and say that from my position at the trust, working with donors, I love hearing those farm connection stories. I love hearing about your experiences connecting with the land. And I'm happy to pay that forward and share it for the good of the order tonight. So Sarah, thank you for sharing that with me. And I am, as a Southwest Washingtonian, I am very excited to see our work expand south down the I-5 corridor on a personal note. So can't wait, can't wait. What else do folks want to share?
I thought that I thought Kent was done, and south of Kent, it's really hopeful to hear what's going on there. It's very exciting that there's something left.
Exactly.
Are we just jumping in here?
Yeah, please do, Sarah.
Yeah, so I became a donor not because I know much at all about farming, but because I shop at PCC and I appreciate all the produce that I was had access to. So and now I'm realizing there's so much more, of course, which is why I'm watching. So where does a lot of the produce from farms, where is it sold? It's obviously not all coming to PCC, but how does?
That's a great question. Melissa, are you able to tackle that or? Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so in our early phases as an organization, we largely worked with farmers who were selling direct to consumer, whether it's through their farmers markets or through community supported agriculture. And as our capacities as an organization grew and the landscapes we aimed to conserve grew, we started broadening the kind of farms and the scale of farms that we were working with. So we now work with dairies. We have several dairies that we partner with. We have a very large organic grain and bean operation on the east side that we've partnered with to conserve their acreage in Washington. And we have some larger scale commercial growers up in this Stillaguamish Valley. And we still work with direct to consumer producers, just to say that's not the preponderance of individuals that we work with. And many of them do sell to PCC, but it's certainly not a requirement in terms of working with us.
Yes, so I'm gathering that a lot bigger. And so the other thing too, and being who's kind of naive about this, does the trust give capital directly to farmers for leasing or for running the farms, or not so much?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question. We, as a nonprofit, we can't give dollars to for-profit businesses, but what we do is that we want to meet producers where they are in terms of their commitments to soil health and water health and basically sustainability practices. So we have a grant program that we launched in 2016 called Advancing Farm Sustainability, and we offer micro grants to producers who would want to leverage those grants to invest in sustainable farm practices. So a lot of times we'll have people, we're in a round right now where we offer an opportunity to apply, and we can, people can apply. Historically, it's been up to $2,000. We recently were awarded a grant where we can up that amount to $5,000, but people have utilized those grants for things like buying cover crop seed. It's really expensive, buying organic amendments for their soil, buying implements for their tractors, which helps them limit impact to the soil as they're tilling and weeding, flame weeders that limit use of herbicides, so they're not using herbicides to manage weeds. So the goal and the underlying goal of that program is really to provide resources to farmers to invest in protecting the natural resources on their property, and particularly build soil health and protect water quality and quantity. Those are the primary ways we offer resources to farmers, other than our direct conservation payments. So when we buy an easement from a producer, we leverage public dollars, and then we purchase that development right from a producer, and they get the fair market value of that right to develop. And it's a per acre price. It's always based on appraisal, but we're using public dollars and sometimes philanthropy to do that transaction, but we get that development right in return, and then we extinguish it. So it ensures it's only going to be farmland into the future, and it will not be developed as anything except as a farm.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Sarah. Great answer, Melissa. So while we were chatting, we got two more questions in the chat. The first one is from Anne. I'm happy to field this one. It's about giving. She asks, in terms of donor giving, is there any area that is a priority for the trust, or are open donations more helpful? As is typical in fundraising, I'll give the straightforward answer, which is that we always prefer unrestricted gifts. However, there are certain cases where folks have opted to restrict to a certain geographic area if they have a heart center, in a certain valley, and we've been able to work with donors on a case-by-case basis to do that. And so all of our unrestricted dollars help fund exactly what Melissa just described in terms of our conservation priorities, expansion of farm to farmer, and operations. So really unrestricted is our preference, as is typical. However, we're happy to work with donors who want to make a special or restricted gift. We've done that before, and it's a pleasure. So thank you to everyone. And then, is the status of the farm? Oh, what is the status of the farm on Snohomish near Monroe? Melissa, would you be able to offer a Reiner update? This one's from Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. Yes, happy to. That farm is top of mind. So Reiner Farm was conserved in 2018, and we purchased it with our very first impact investment vehicle. We had 7 investors support us in that initiative, and also philanthropy was a big part of how we made sense of that $3.4 million transaction. So still eternally grateful for all of you who participated in that. It's Reiner Farm is 260 acres, sits along the Skykomish River, right at the doorstep of Monroe. It was a high priority for our partners in Snohomish County. It is actively farmed. It has a significant amount of habitat. And as we approached the landowner and the transaction, we said, this has valuable, irreplaceable farmland soils, and it has a significant amount of habitat. And we began talking with the Tulalip tribe about their interests in the habitat area and accessing the river, and the tenants' interest in securing that farmland for their farm business. And so it became, we've used the words multi-pronged approach several times in this conversation. It truly was a multi-pronged approach where we're trying to leverage multiple benefits off of one property and also get land into the hands of the best stewards. And for the riparian area, we are working with the Tulalip tribes right now, where we're transitioning 100 acres of the riparian property back to the tribes. We're hoping to complete that hopefully by the end of the year. The goal was to do it mid-year this year, but as any good real estate deal goes, there are and boundary line adjustments and things like that, the complexities are bogging us down a little bit. So we're a little wrapped up in the real estate side of it, but we've got funding available to fund that sale of that property to the tribes, and we've helped the tribes leverage public dollars and also private dollars to enable that sale. We also have public dollars that are going to help place a conservation easement on that property on the ag acreage. And then ultimately in 2024, we're still driving toward a sale of the agricultural acreage. And so then the land will be owned by farmers. It will be permanently protected. The riparian lands will be in the hands of the Tulalip tribe, who are really interested in restoring that whole reach. And this is kind of the critical linchpin in those restoration efforts. And we're well underway. We're just really bogged down with the real estate technicalities of transitioning land to other partners. So hope to have good news maybe this year around the riparian sale. And we continue to work with the tenants on their long-term plans for the property and work toward selling the property to them over the next few years.
Thanks for the question, Nancy, and for that great answer, Melissa. We've talked a little bit about the riparian area. I'm going to turn another one over to you on the habitat front here shortly. This is from Jay. He's asking if you could speak a little bit more in detail about what kind of strategies or techniques the trust is using to promote healthier Chinook and salmon runs. If you want to take that one, perhaps this Dilly.
Yeah, exactly. So the way we approach complexities and multiple benefits is through partnership. We are not salmon experts. We value salmon, we value habitat, but there are a lot of people in this world who know a lot more about what that work is and where those priorities are. And so we, along with some partners up in Snohomish County, have mapped the county for where the priority lands for agriculture are and how they relate to priority habitat for wildlife, and particularly salmon. And so we've been able to identify the hotspots that provide both a value in terms of farmland conservation and also protection of that habitat. Because when we have stewards, farmers, farming land with salmon in mind, they're responsive to buffers, and farming is very different than having a development right next to these priority salmon areas. And this doesn't quite get at your answer, Jay, but I think it's really important to note, especially about the Stille. When we were doing that mapping work that I shared with you earlier about where we were going to strategically focus and where we're going to prioritize, we had a convening of North Sound partners from Snohomish County all the way up to Whatcom. We gave them all dots and said, if you could choose where the trust were to spend our money, where would you choose? And regardless of where they were from, north of Seattle, everybody chose the Stillaguamish Valley. And they recognized in that vote, what they were recognizing is that the value of farmland, but also protecting that salmon habitat, and how that had, ripple effect benefits all the way up and down the coast of Washington. And and as everybody pointed out, that's kind of the green line. And people think about, like, if the Stille Valley goes, so goes farmland all up and down the I-5 corridor north. And so it's a really critical area for farmland protection and really stemming the tide of the development that's coming from Seattle, but also ensuring that that landscape stays open and available and is not impacting salmon runs that are in particularly the Stille. But we do all of that through partnership, and none of that is possible through partnership. So we work closely with the tribes, and we listen and plan with their priorities for salmon protection and habitat and restoration. We work with the county up there. We work with the conservation district to really map, okay, who's going deep here? What are your priorities? Are there benefits to ag? Okay, let's do that. It's just Robin on our team is really in the thick of those relationships. And it's been a relationship building and trust over time to really map what those multiple benefits can be across the landscape for multiple partners. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. So I want to acknowledge that we are near the end of our time, and I thank Lily and Megan for sparking this conversation with us tonight, for bringing so much to the table in terms of their expertise, and for Melissa for bringing all of her expertise and being able to field all these questions. I really appreciate everybody's participation. It's made for a very nice night. Unless we have any lingering sort of walk-on items, I think I'd ask Megan that you could stop the recording and save to your desktop before I close the call. So one last